Canon R5 or the Sony A7rV, there's a lot to talk about. Today I'm comparing and testing these two cameras while I work with a helicopter company and some ice climbing guides out on Glacier. I thought, what a better location and what better way to test these two cameras to see which one might be the better camera for you in both photo and video modes, but we're also going to be talking about their ergonomics and how they perform in different situations and a few other areas where Sony and Canon definitely differentiate themselves a lot. So when it comes to photos, I mean, obviously for pure resolution, the A7rV is going to win because it has that 61 megapixel sensor. It actually has really good dynamic range. It produces some really beautiful photos. Now, it does have some rolling shutter issues if you're trying to film stuff that's fast moving. I really had the chance to do that out here today. I did some helicopter stuff. Where the Canon R5 Mark II is 45 megapixels, they're also really nice images. I mean, there is a difference in dynamic range, but how much of that you're gonna see will really depend on what you're shooting and how you're shooting it. For me personally, I think I prefer the 45 megapixels. I came from the Sony A1 and I like the 50 megapixel size. 61 is just a lot for my needs. Now, if you're a landscape photographer, 61 is great. If you do birding and wildlife, 61 is great, but also that rolling shutter might come into play on some of those shots. I haven't had the chance to shoot a lot of wildlife with this camera, but it does do a really good job. For me, I like the Canon just because the file size is a little more manageable, and also I find the images are beautiful. I mean, honestly, either one of these cameras is going to take really great photos if you take a good photo and you have a good subject to take a photo of, like I do today. I mean, they're really great photography cameras. Now, when it came to autofocus in photography mode or photo mode, I found that both of them did a really good job. The Canon seemed to do better, in my opinion. Just seemed to pick up people a little better. It picked up the eyes, the heads a little farther away, where the A7rV struggled a little more. Now, this does have Sony's AI autofocus in here, which I think typically does a phenomenal job. And it did do a good job. I'm not saying it did a terrible job or anything like that, but it definitely had a little harder time than the R5 Mark II did. But again, that's, very subject dependent. I think depending on how you set things up and how you shoot, it might not matter to you at all. But there is a big difference between these two cameras when it comes to video modes, and that's where we have a lot to talk about. Both of them shoot 4K, they both shoot 4K 60, but the R5 Mark II will shoot 4K 120, which the A7rV does not. And both of them will film 8K, but in the A7rV, again, you're limited to 8K at 24 frames a second, whereas the Canon R5 Mark II will do 8K 30, it will do 8K 60 in 8K RAW, which I don't really mess with because it's a lot of work, but it will do 8K 60 if you need it to. And video mode wise, like both of these shoot really great video. They really do. I prefer the look of the Canon because of the 4K fine modes, where you get this downsampled 8K image that looks much nicer than the 4K image off of the A7rV. Just the way they're processing the image is a little different, and I prefer the look of the Canon for sure because it just has a better detail, a little less issues than the A7rV did. And we're really nitpicking here. Like, these details are minute and minor, and if you're posting stuff online a lot, then you're really not going to see the difference. I don't even know if the difference will come through on this YouTube video, but there is definitely a difference when you're looking at the files side by side. The other thing that both of these cameras do, because they both shoot 10-bit 422, is they will shoot S-Log3, which is a great S-Log codec in the A7rV, and Canon C-Log2 in the the R5 Mark II. Both of those give you a lot of dynamic range and can give you some really, really beautiful images out of the camera if you are going to color grade. Dynamic range wise in video, I didn't see a huge difference. They look very similar to me. They both have, you know, good stabilization. They both have great autofocus in video. They both have animal IAF and all the other like kind of intelligent autofocus subjects in both video and photo modes, which is really nice because it just gives you much more accurate focus. But again, I feel like the R5 Mark II, it's a newer camera, like 2 years newer, did a little better job and just grabbed focus a little bit faster and a little bit better than the A7rV did. But the other difference that comes in these two when you're filming is that the R5 Mark II, you can stabilize mechanically and optically, which is great, but you can also have 2 levels of digital stabilization built in, even when you're filming in 8K, where the A7rV, you don't get the higher levels of digital stabilization. You only get the mechanical stabilization and then first level of digital, which was part of the reason I switched from the A1 to the R5 Mark II, because I do so much handheld shooting. Having that extra stabilization really does help. Or the A1 Mark I, and then the A1 Mark II doesn't have it either. And if I can ever get my hands on an A1 Mark II for a week or so, I will do a comparison between the R5, because I feel like that's a better comparison specs wise. But yeah, the A7rV is holding its own in most ways, maybe not in all ways. And when it comes to low light in video, I haven't had a chance to test a lot of low light on these two cameras, but I feel like it's pretty neck and neck. You don't really see a huge low light boost or great low light performance in either one. It's too hot. I can't stand out here in the sun with this jacket on. Then we come to the biggest debate of them all, which is the Canon color science versus Sony color science. And to be honest, like, if you're filming in log and raw, you can make them look like pretty much whatever you want. That being said, I will say Sony tends to be a little cooler and lean toward a little more, say, accurate or clinical colors, where Canon leads to be a little bit more warmer and is a little more, not flattering colors, but just colors that have a little bit more flattery on skin tones. But honestly, either one of these cameras, like, they produce beautiful images in both video and photo mode, and once you learn how to edit them to get them to look like what you want, you can edit it to look like anything you really need it to, especially if you're filming in RAW or shooting in RAW and filming in log. The R5 Mark II is the first camera that I've been able to match up to photos and videos much better and much more easily than I have been able to do that with Sony. So take that for what you will. These clips you're seeing here, like, it was incredibly, this would have been incredibly challenging to grade with Sony to make it look, and the photos to look like the video and the video to look like the photos. But with the Canon, it was much easier than I've ever had an issue with in the past. Hey, if you're enjoying or getting value out of this video, then consider subscribing. I go out and test and compare equipment in the real world situations here in Alaska where I live, and I give you tips and tutorials on how to use it. And then we come to ergonomics and usability. And here there is also a huge difference. Ergonomics wise, the Canon R5 wins, in my opinion. I have fairly large hands. Being able to grip it and hold on to it is just really easy. It feels very comfortable and I like it. The only thing I don't like about it is these little flaps on this side, because they are kind of a pain When they're loose, they just hang there like that, and I don't like that. I do prefer the Sony flaps. On the other hand, the A7R5 has the older Sony body, so if you have an A9 Mark III or an A1 Mark II, you'll have the more updated ergonomics, which are considerably better. But in this case, like these flaps here, I much prefer the way those operate over the Canon ones. And by far, Sony has the best screen system out there because it's a tilty, flippy, you can do whatever you want with it. I love the screen on the A7R5. The Canon screen, it does come out, you can rotate it and flip it and all that, but that's it. So when you're shooting low angles with this, it's a little harder to see. But on the other hand, the screen on the Sony is crap. The screen on the Canon is so much better and so much nicer. Now, when it comes to the viewfinders, both of them are really, really good. The edge probably goes to the A7R5, maybe by a smidge, and I can't really show you that anyway, but it's a little bit better. But the the Canon R5 Mark II has a great viewfinder as well. I've not really tried the eye autofocus where you control the autofocus with your eye. I just haven't. It's not really useful for me for what I do for the general deal, but that is something you have an option to with the Canon. And in the usability category, they both have this sort of quick switch mode where you can switch between video and photo mode really fast, like this on the Canon and like this on the Sony. And while they both switch between photo and video mode very quickly, the Canon actually is almost instant, where the A7R5 takes just a second. So if you're a hybrid shooter, that might be something to consider. And then we come to media and accessories. Now, Canon, you have a CF Express or CF Express type B card, which is really fast, and a SD card, which is UHS 2. I wish it had two CF Express Type B cards, but that's fine. An area where Sony is winning right now is you have these two Express A ports, CF Express Type A ports, which are, yes, Sony's, but they also double as an SD card port, so you can have either SD cards or CF Express Type A cards in either slot, both slots, and so that is really nice on the A7R5. And an area where Sony is just killing it because they have so many other technology groups in their company is these little microphones. Being able to plug this in and get great audio straight out of this little microphone with noise canceling, without noise canceling, digitally straight into the camera is amazing. And you have a lot of different options for how to do this. This one is great for a lot of different things. It's actually one of my favorites. All this stuff will be linked down in the description, of course. But you can also use DJI's DJI Mic 2 system, and they have a little adapter that will plug it straight in here, so you don't have to have any cables, which is fantastic. That being said, Canon does have one option that they build. It's big, it doesn't sound great, and then you can get this Tascam option, which also does kind of similar to the Sony, plugs in, and then you do get XLR inputs, and the audio quality on this is great. I do use this pretty often, but for something like this, I mean, come on, look at the size difference between these two. That is huge. It's so big. So I don't generally take this with me on stuff like this just because it's way too big. And when it comes down to just the pure size and weight, like the Sony is a little smaller and a little lighter, and like the 24-70 and the 24-70, which is what I've been shooting on both of these, is definitely a lot smaller and lighter. But it also doesn't have stabilization, optical stabilization built into the lens. So depending on how you shoot, that might be a way to go. For me, tons of handheld shooting, the extra stabilization is really helpful. And since they both come in around the $4,000 mark, it's like either one of these is going to be a great camera for you. Just depends on, again, your needs and what you shoot. Now, I'm not going to pick a winner or a loser because it is so highly dependent on what you shoot, how you shoot, where you shoot. For me, the R5 Mark II is definitely what I need, and for the hybrid work that I do out in places like this, it's a fantastic camera. It does great in so many situations. Part of the reason I changed from the A1 to this was because it was less expensive, it had the extra stability built into the lenses, and it's really fantastic image quality. Plus, it gives you autofocus in video and photo modes for so many different things. It's just a really fantastic camera. Next, you're going to want to watch this video right here. I'll see you over there. As always, if you have a question or you have a comment about what I found or thought, then let me know in the comments below, or you can join my live stream, which happens most Wednesday nights at 4 p.m. Alaska time, 8 p.m. Eastern, where we can have more of a conversation and you can tell me how much of a fanboy I am of one system or the other. I'll see you again soon in the next video. Cheers.